Welcome, everybody, to the Business Agility Boost. Our topic today is the role of HR, or better, people and culture as drivers of change, shaping the future way of working and enabling business growth. But why is that important? Well, our business landscape is evolving every day, and people seek for meaning and want to contribute to a higher purpose. We are no longer able to find answers to the biggest topics on our own. To deal with the challenges and improve collaboration and become adaptive to change, most organizations start change initiatives, which probably are part of a digital transformation, sustainable transformation, agile transformation, and so on. Starting new ways of working and new ways of thinking often comes with a shift in mindsets and behaviors, learning new skills and capabilities. It's impossible to start without understanding what is necessary to be successful. And as people are the foundation of our organization, HR can play a crucial role. My name is Elise Hofmeester, founder of Twingster, and it's my purpose to humanize business and create spaces where everyone can thrive. We support organizations in creating such spaces with our consultancy, our academy, and, among others, sharing knowledge and cases of people in the field of transformation and change. So, therefore, I'm very happy today that we have a special guest, Margarita Jonova Popova. And I will introduce her shortly because she can do that far more better as I can. Margarita is former transformation lead within Erste Group Bank HR, and currently she is a group P&C lead at Nortal. Margarita has extensive experience in HR strategy, employee experience, change management, HR tech, not to forget, culture, change, and agile transformation. She is driven by her purpose to enable a healthy organizational culture for people to grow, to collaborate, and become the best version of themselves. Welcome, Margarita. I'm very excited to have you as our special guest, and I still remember the first time we met in London at the conference of the Agile Business Consortium, right?
Hi, Alice. Thank you for such a nice introduction, and thank you for having me today in this session of the Business Agility Boost. Yes, I do remember very vividly. It was some time ago already, some years ago already, but I remember that our meeting there was maybe meant to be because I remember entering. You were giving a session on leadership and transformation and the role of leadership, and we had a very nice discussion. I remember it still today about the role of purpose, leadership, and agile ways of working in change. I do remember that we didn't speak at all about operating models. I do remember that we didn't touch topics like, I don't know, how the structure should look like or these kind of things, but we were more talking about how do we arrive at these things together. And that's what stood out for me that time. And I'm so happy that after this conference we kept exchanging on our experiences and views, and till today we share common discussions on this topic. So I'm very happy to be today here with you, and thanks again for the invitation. Very important topic you're putting on the table, I have to say. Very relevant today. I think all of our colleagues here today with us in this session agree that we are definitely facing unprecedented times and very dynamic environment. Now I love dynamic environments. It creates both challenges, but also we have a lot of opportunities that we can capture. But now it's very important that given what we are facing today in terms of economy, in terms of political challenges, unfortunately, that we see in conflicts everywhere, but we also see very much progression of technology, progress in terms of changes in our workforce. Yeah, the things that we were talking last year about the new generation and the new things are already here, and we
Yeah.
already start seeing the post effect of that. And I believe in these extraordinary times that we face, we do need extraordinary thinking and extraordinary measures, as the common saying says. So it's time to, no matter how good we are doing today, to really reflect, can we sustain that in the future? And people and culture has a huge role in that, because in the end, as you said, it is about what we can do as professionals, or how we can contribute to the success of our business ideas and to the value creation for our customers. So in the end of the day, it is about the people.
Yeah, yeah, nicely said, Margarita. And what you already said, all kind of changes are rolling over each other and popping up without knowing it, and that we are working on something. And then when you are working on it, you already think, we need to change and we need to adapt already. So I also remember that we talked for hours during the conference, and after that, what you already explained, we stayed connected. And also, when your organization you worked in back then plan to change the new way of working within HR, you ask us to help us in this process. Can you take us?
True.
Can you take us with you on this journey? How you were aiming to start?
Yeah, thanks for bringing me back to this memory and what we went through. I mean, the project that you're referring to, or the journey that you're referring to, because then it became much more than a project, started, I think, in a very classical, let's put it that way, matter. We had in that initiative, basically, we had a leadership team, senior leadership team, which had a very good ambition and vision to kick off a journey to discover how can we stay relevant and meaningful for our customers and employees. Now, very good ambition, very good vision, very good starting statement, right? However, I think what my colleagues dealing with change and transformation would also agree is that very often from such a good beginning, we often end up in classical project management type of approach. So from this very bold statement, let's be more meaningful for our customers and employees, we ended up quite quick in let's say, classical operational execution of this ambition without really exploring what's behind it. So we were faced with deadline, with the fact, let's come up with an operating plan, an operating model that can deliver this. And a working group was put together to actually start working on this and deliver an explanation, how can we change our structure and way of working so that we can deliver value. And I think what this situation showed me, and really I had a lot of learnings from it, is that we often underestimate the power of having a strictly aligned leadership team who understands what is needed in that sense in order to progress towards the vision. And a leadership team that is well aligned, that has a good story, that has a common purpose, and that enables the rest of the organization, or creates the right environment for the organization to start moving forward. So we ended up in how to say, in a situation where we had a PowerPoint in our hands, which visualized a nice operating model. And everyone who is familiar with agile organizations knows what kinds of things you normally have in such a model, like chapters and squads and different teams there, and new roles and everything around that. And we stood in front of this PowerPoint, and I remember that we asked ourselves the question, okay, but is this really serving the purpose? Is this going to deliver the value the leadership is expecting? And then we had an aha moment in this working group that it's not operating models that deliver value, it's people who will deliver value. And we asked ourselves, okay, something is not really right. And we took a step back. We put this PowerPoint in the drawer, and we came back to the leadership team, started working with them, having those more substantial conversations around the purpose, around where do we really want to be, why do we want to be there and not here. So these kind of questions we started, and we took that PowerPoint in the back of our heads and minds, because it was not wrong, it was just out of context and out of what reality will show eventually.
Yeah, yeah, I remember these conversations, and it was very nice how you switched the approach. And there's not a right or wrong, eh? So every organization has its own approach. But first, you wander together, also understand, yeah, what are we aiming for? What is really the purpose? And is this model then going to help us and solve our problems so that we can collaborate more? So can you explain a bit about this different approach?
Yes, I mean, as I mentioned, we decided to take this step away from the actual operating model that time we have designed, because we knew that we are missing this strong purpose. Like, why this structure and not another structure? Like, why are we coming with these kind of things? How sure we are that they will really work? How are we going to measure all of that as well? Then we also asked ourselves how connected as well this is in the context of the bigger organization, because in the end of the day, we don't want to transform people and culture for the sake of people and culture. We want to have a certain business impact, an impact on our customers. So how was that connected? How much awareness we had in the organization about this? How close we were to actually the business priorities. So that was also a question. And last but not least, often these kind of transformations really have the category of a project. And then they're lined up among other things like we need to do, like other projects. And they end up in a project portfolio that you need to fight for resources. So we were thinking that we really need to get a different standing and come up with a different way of work that can allow us to actually have different conversations. And what we essentially did is we planned, first of all, a different setup for the transformation team. So we really started reflecting who will facilitate that change and who is leading that change. Two very different things.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that was the first step, actually. Really, step zero, if you wish, but very important step. So we really reflected: do we have the capabilities that we need in that working group that I'm referring to pull things off and really to facilitate the change? And how is this team seen as well in the rest of the organization? I'm not a fan of, for instance, putting transformation teams as a box somewhere in the organization and then claiming, this is the team who will lead the transformation. That usually creates silos. That's my experience, that if you sit in such a box, you're often far away from reality and where things really happen. So in the end of the day, the capabilities you would need to facilitate a change or to design the future or to reflect on the current situation are the current capabilities probably in the organization. It depends now on the transformation type and what you want to achieve. But in our case, in that case that you're referring to, in that initiative, it was, okay, people and culture, communication, business representatives, IT representatives. So different parts of the organization brought important angles, and we wanted to make sure that we have those capabilities with us. And that was the first thing, how we changed our.
Okay. So you first started really to set up the transformation team, not
Mhm.
being the leaders only of the transformation, but really accelerating and drivers of the change in collaboration with other people and other departments and business. And so you could say that's a bit of a multidisciplinary team already.
Yes,
And making use of
cross-functional,
all
exactly.
cross-functional. And can you explain a bit how you then started to build those capabilities, and why is that important?
Yes, I mean, if I bring myself back and we started really with looking at our mission. Yeah, again, like a classical team starts in that sense, no rocket science there, but who are we and what are we here for? Like what is expected from us, or what is our mission? That's very important to define. And then to build it or elevate it to a team purpose, something that unites us all. Because remember, we're cross-functional or multidisciplinary, that, as you said.
Yeah.
We're not used to work together in that sense. Yeah, so everyone comes from their environment. We also have like colleagues outside of our normal environment of the company. So we need to get to know each other, and we need something that unites us. And I think this is often neglected when transformation teams are put together. They're immediately expected to deliver and execute on whatever they're told. But they also need a purpose. They also need to get to know each other. They also need to realize what are the things that we can leverage, the things that we are strong in, and what are the things that we need to learn, for example.
Yeah.
In our case, I remember we had a lot about design thinking. Yeah, who has this capability? Who has experience in that? What do we need to learn for it? So we went through all of these questions for us first. We agreed on our way of working. Like, when do we meet? How often do we need to meet? What do we discuss where? How do we make decisions? What are the right moments to involve who? Who are our critical stakeholders and key stakeholders? Who are our customers? For whom are we doing this? Because there is a big difference between stakeholders and customers. Then stakeholders, how do we need to, who needs to, the RACI matrix, very useful thing to do for your stakeholders, like who is really responsible, who is accountable for what, who needs to be only consulted and only informed. So we did this pre-work for us as a team so that we could facilitate the change going forward. Because many times when you read things and you know it yourself about change, it says start with leadership. Yeah, great. But someone needs to help leadership as well. So actually, you need to start, even that's why I call it step zero. You need to start thinking, okay, who is actually helping this leadership team or leadership to start with the change? Who is facilitating that? Who is organizing that, even for the simple things? And also, we had a conversation how we as a transformation team fit with the leadership team, because I said there is a difference between facilitate and drive. Yeah, it's not the change of the transformation team. Yes, we are responsible for certain parts, the thing goes well, that we have the relevant steps and so on, but it's not our journey in that sense. So it was very interesting to start with that and really to have it well outlined and structured for us. This helped tremendously, and that's why I recommend it, and I use it as well for the next initiatives I was involved. That we need to have this clarity.
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing what you highlight, that a transformation cannot be delegated to a transformation team. So it's a joint effort, and leaders have a big role in it. But you, as a transformation team, also needs to know what is then necessary and how can you help them further. So it's an important step which you took back then, and still. But that time you were part of a larger company. And I also sometimes hear, okay, a transformation or change initiative, which is part of a transformation, is totally different than in a smaller, when you are working in a large organization than in a smaller organization. So could you maybe also advise people, organizations who are not part of that large organization and have a smaller organization to start with?
That's a very, very good question. Yes, right now I'm part of a smaller organization in that sense, but I have to say I'm very lucky that I'm part of Norto, not a small organization, so small organization at all. We have more than 2,400 employees and more than 15 locations across the globe. So, but still, if you compare, I don't know, to the corporations you're referring to with hundreds and 150,000 people, many colleagues would say, yeah, maybe there is a difference how you run change and how you approach change. We might be confused by things like, okay, how communication flows, that in smaller organizations, maybe it flows easily and you have less silos versus in large corporation where you have more silos and different divisions. Or it's true maybe from a resource availabilities and allocation as well, that, okay, large organizations can afford much more in terms of resource and leverage bigger crowd.
Yeah.
In that sense, bigger infrastructure versus smaller organizations. So things like that. Maybe true, everything has pros and cons or opportunities and challenges. Yeah. However, if you ask me from a change perspective, I would still recommend the same type of steps and questions that everyone needs to go through, no matter the size of the organization. Because whatever change journey you're starting, you need to start with your why and know, okay, what's the purpose of all that, and be able to explain it quite clearly. You need to know where you want to go and why there and not here. You need to know where are you today and what should be different tomorrow. Yeah. You need to understand then, how do you get there? What are the critical milestones? So there are these very basic, no rocket science things that you need to go through regardless of your size of the organization. It's the same logic. Just from my perspective, I would go through the same questions. And for transformation team, maybe in a small organization, it's rather some kind of a working group. Doesn't matter. You still need someone, even if it's one person, who facilitates that change and who helps provoke the right questions, thinking, and who can support to create the right environment for change to flow. Yes. So these questions still remain the same from my perspective.
Yeah, no matter if you have a large organization or working in a small organization, starting a skill up. Yeah, great advice to really start with that. Sometimes we forget it and we just run forward, but good to really reflect on these questions and then understanding what you are aiming for and where you want to go and what is necessary to go there. And we also, Margarita, we also see often organizations that they start by changing the way HR works in other parts of the organization. In fact, sometimes HR is not even involved. So, or the last department to make the change. What is your view on that? And you took a different approach, but there's a reason for that.
Yes, I mean, I also have witnessed situations in which HR is not involved in business transformations, for example, as they're called, because it's business. HR should not be there. In the end of the day, as I mentioned in the very beginning, every change is about people. So there are people behind. So it's not like boxes moving from A to B or asking, even if it's a business transformation, we change a business model or something like that. Well, there are people behind who execute this model and need to help operate. So I do believe that HR is a good sparring partner and should be a good sparring partner in that. And be included just to make sure that the leadership and people perspective is in there. However, what we also see is that HR is often not prepared to run these things. Yeah, so we have to, and I'm saying this from the sweetness of my heart, being 11 years in people and culture domain, that we still are very much behind with many things that we should know in order to run transformations, starting from simple project management. And let's face how good we really are in people and culture in these things. Not to mention then employee experience, still very much behind. Agile ways of working, still very much behind. Still learning these things. So these are things which are very much needed when you help in a transformation or in a change journey. So we also see that we definitely still are fighting with the old shadows of people and culture being operational function, execution function, support function. And when you're a support function, you do, yeah. So and you're not so much used to strategic thinking, stakeholder engagement, experience discussions, and so on. That's unfortunately the shadow that I still see. And I think that's also part of the reason why we are not on the table when these kind of things happen. We started differently because in the sense, HR is a good field for experimentation for many things. We don't believe it. Maybe some people would argue, we should be careful not to break people and culture processes. People in the end of the day should receive their salaries and contracts should be done. And I do agree, but that's not all what HR is doing. So there is still fields that we can experiment in terms of ways of working, because if we in people and culture understand it and went through it, then we can much better transition it and translate it to the rest of the organization and really communicate it and implement it in a proper way. So if we do it ourselves first, then we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that was, for me, one of the reasons where I always see HR as a good first body in such kind of discussions and first body in such kind of activities. Yeah, let's walk the talk, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only way if we also go through it.
Yeah, exactly. And what you already mentioned, the employee experience should also be aligned within the transformation. So what do people need? How can you create it together? So very important that HR is involved and understands what is necessary in the rest of the organization and not work in silos. And as the orchestrators of change, because we also would like to know a bit more from you, how you started, what did you do? So can you elaborate a bit on how that people journey or employee journey of the leadership approach looks like? What did you start with?
Yes, in that initiative that you are referring to, as I said, we put the PowerPoint in the drawer. We started with the transformation team work, and then we simply, very practically, we organized series of conversations. Nothing fancy, if you think about it. So we made sure we have proper windows of time where we can go through the critical questions about designing our future way of working. So we had series of conversations, starting with a conversation about who we are today and how happy we are with who we are. That was the first very simple conversation. Before we think about anything fancy about the future, let's be realistic who we are today. What are our strengths? What do we wish to change? What are opportunities that we can leverage, and what we need to be aware in terms of context? And that was a very important first exercise because it helps also to kind of dust off the current feelings. It puts on the table the hopes and concerns which everyone in the leadership team has and what we are proud of, because we are where we are for a reason. That's true for any organization and for any team. It's not like we have been stupid for 10 years, we didn't do anything, and here we are. No, there are initiatives that happened, campaigns that happened. So wonderful. So what did we learn? What we like, what we don't like. So classical conversation in that sense from the agile world, kind of a retro, if you will. And we used SWOT analysis for that. Very, very simple technique. Everyone knows how to do, no rocket science. So that was the first step. And as I said, very important because it brought the true hopes and concerns that we have and the things that we are proud of. And that's a very important emotional engine for what's about to come.
Yeah, because often, sorry to interrupt, Margarita, but what we often hear also from employees and leaders in organizations is that we start a new way of working. So is everything that we did before then not good enough? Or do we need to forget it? So it's very important to take that also with you, the strong things and what you are proud of and what helped you to this moment in time.
Yes, and that's the most respectful way towards your colleagues and your people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just tell them, okay, stop what you're doing today because tomorrow we have something new, and everyone is like, okay, that doesn't work. And you know it from a personal experience as well at home, how things work and how you start new things. So it's a respectful way to be proud of what you have today and proud of your learnings as well. Yeah, and not everything is, of course, pink flowers and flying ponies, but it is a learning. And how do you take things from there? So that's why I'm a fan of this. And some methods of change could argue that, yeah, but first you need to know where you want to go and then to start benchmarking. But that, for me, that respectful moment brings a lot of good energy for the way forward, especially if you have to move a big crowd towards the future, and if the change is a very big one. Yeah, you need that energy for going forward.
Yeah.
And then only then actually we went to the future in that way. So we started reflecting, okay, what should it be? Like, how do we imagine that process, that way of work in the future? What's good about it? Why we like it? How do we imagine it? Yeah, what reactions do we imagine about it? So it was a big imagination, dreaming session. Several sessions actually, not just one, but we took time to dream, knowing who we are, how we look like, do we like it or not. We dared to dream, and that was also very important. We didn't talk about, but if we dream this, let's be careful about that. No, it was pure dreaming. And that was also important, to dare to purely dream without thinking about the constraints that you have or the things that you have, because you already know that. We have said that, we booked it, we know it. Now it's time to dream about this future. So that was the second step. And then knowing these two things, right? So where we are today and where we want to be in the future and why, we could properly talk about, okay, and what do we need to get there? Yeah. Knowing who we are today and what we miss, or what do we want to learn, or what do we have? So that was a series of such conversations that in a structured way helped us to follow these very critical change questions and to define, in the end of the day, that PowerPoint that I referred to in the beginning, but with a very different tone of voice, with very different level of confidence, and with a very different level of buy-in. Because all these questions you don't do behind closed doors with a few God-blessed leaders from the organization. You do it together with the organization as well. Yeah. You know that I'm a big fan of co-creation, and I would love to hear the views of the ones who will be impacted by the change, our customers.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you are really a big fan of collaboration, and also really take care of collaboration in the organization. And that's very powerful also from the entire transformation team you worked with to take that approach. And I was thinking, because you mentioned we took time for imagination, for dreaming. What is the time frame if you think of that? Do you
Only
still
for
know how much
imagination.
time that costed with the leadership team, for example? And I know we will come back to it in the next, but
Oh yeah,
to give a bit of an idea
yes.
to people who are watching, how
In
much?
now it depends on the project, but or on the journey you're on. In that particular journey, the whole duration of designing the future, and then also reflecting on the way forward, including involvement of the company, involving our people into discussions, communicating the new way of working and all that. It was roughly 9 months. I have I just went through a different project, which was about process improvement. We created a new onboarding process and aligned it, and
Yeah.
that took, I think, 6 months. Yeah. So it really depends what you want to do, like how big is the thing that you need to do. But it does take time. I will not say anything against that. But the amount of energy that you create, the amount of buy-in that you create, and
Yeah.
the quality of that design, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally stand behind this. If you want to do it faster, then there are consequences of that as well, and
Yeah.
we know it.
Yeah.
I get often the question, how do you deal with resistance?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how you deal with resistance. For example, it's not the only way, but for example, this is the steps I would recommend if you face a tough environment, exhausted environment, low engagement, low motivation. Going through these steps with your leaders and involving your people can help you overcome resistance, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, and spend time with them and give it attention, and not to walk over it and go forward, but really take the time. And that's also what you did during those sessions. But I'm still a bit curious about the imagination sessions. You are a fan of it. I'm also a fan of it. But can you explain how did you do that? Because dreaming, it's nice, but
And we are on LinkedIn.
we are on
The
LinkedIn.
sessions
So
we are on LinkedIn, and this was the essence of the sessions, LinkedIn,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
we used and I'm a fan of these type of co-creative initiatives. We used LinkedIn posts for that, so we ask. The participants to think about, okay, if it's 5 years from now or 3 years, doesn't matter, it depends on your time frame, and you're on LinkedIn. Everyone is on LinkedIn usually from the audience. What would be a post that you would write about the organization? Yeah, so what do you want to write and say to your network
yeah,
about the new organization? And this is the things that usually people are proud of, right? So you want to share something with someone that you're proud of. You want to bring an example. You want to share a learning. You want to give your words of wisdom. So we imagined that we are in the future, and we looked around, and we drafted posts on LinkedIn for LinkedIn. It was, of course,
yeah.
not real. That we would love one day to be able to post.
Okay.
And that was very powerful
Yeah.
to get these things that I mentioned out. And that helped a lot to shape the future way of working.
Yeah, yeah, nice example. And what you did is with the leadership team, but not only with the leadership team, because you also wanted to bring the story further. So how did you continue afterwards? So you have your LinkedIn post and everyone shared it together, but then you need to also bring it across into the organization and maybe turn it around. So
Yeah.
how did you align with the other with people in the organization?
Yes, so one very important thing that you bring me with that question is the fact that when we talked about the transformation team and the importance of preparing that, we often have seen only transformation roadmaps. Yeah, so
Mhm.
everyone wants to see, oh, what are the milestones and the concrete deliverables? So when are we? What do we have by end of December? What do we have by end of Q1? And these kind of things. But next to that, we should definitely have, as detailed as this transformation roadmap, the change in communication plan.
Yeah.
And we often forget to keep that not separate, but to have it specified. Yeah, so it's kind of in the milestones that we are describing, but not entirely. So what's very important is to reflect, okay, now we have defined how we wish the organization to look like 5 years from now. But how are we going to inspire the rest of the organization around it as well and make sure that we validate that with them?
Yeah.
Because, maybe someone says, I don't see myself in that, which is also fine, of course. But how do you communicate that and how do you create the buy-in? And it's very important to have very detailed and very clear outline. What are the formats that we are using? To whom do we share that? Like, who is our target audience? We do have different audiences in an
Mhm. Yeah.
organization for
Yeah.
this. So understanding that is also very important. And what we did is we didn't leave this moment with like having this future organization and then we give it to communications to draft a nice briefing. That's usually what happens, especially in large organizations who have whole communication departments.
Mhm.
What we did is we wanted the leaders to be able to articulate that story. Yeah, of course, the colleagues from comms, perfect professionals, they would make the words in a very nice way. They would help us to articulate that. But what was important that in the end of the day, we are able to convey that message and the leadership is able to convey that message. So that's why we used that for that initiative technique called the Pixar pitch. You can use
Oh,
also elevator pitch or
yeah.
any other sales technique. Usually sales colleagues here or the colleagues who deal with customers and sales management, they know a lot of these tips and tricks. So we stole that from the sales colleagues that time, this Pixar pitch. So what is the story that we want to tell? And Pixar pitch, you can Google it how it looks like. It was used in Pixar, obviously, for their
Yeah. It's
purposes.
really Disney movies are based on it, eh? So once upon a
Yes,
time,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Because as you can imagine, writers have a lot of ideas, but how do you get your idea through? So the Pixar pitch was used as a product pitch for their purposes, and we took that for us because it gave us the opportunity to reflect how do we articulate in the best way the difference that we are making and the impact we are making with the new organization. And we did that together with the leaders, not just with the colleagues from communication. And that was a very good experience. So it's also, my message here is important that whatever the story, you need to make sure that you have a common voice. And in
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's not the professional communication department who will tell the story, it's our leaders, because they need to inspire the people and move their hearts. So create that together, it makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. It's really about their story, yeah? Not of the story of another department, but really authentic, your own story, which you stand behind
Exactly.
and want to follow. Yeah,
Authentic.
a role model. Yeah.
One of the words for
Yeah.
last year, I remember.
Yeah, great. And but now, lately I read a research which stated that almost 83% of organizations do not have an active strategy. So maybe they have a strategy. So you started to work with the leadership team, the people in the organization, to have your purpose, to create a strategy. You have your future vision where you want to go to, but how do you activate that so that it not again becomes a PowerPoint ending up in a
Yeah.
drawer?
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say. Like the next logical step is to put the milestones in the PowerPoint and then send it around so that everyone
Yeah,
knows. But
exactly.
also,
Exactly. Yeah.
I have experienced that quite a lot. When you run such now it depends again on the scale of the change that you want to do and complexity. I'm used to the complex changes, multiple streams, speedboats, and so on. um, it is good to have something that facilitates, again the word facilitates, the conversation about the progress of that, and gives space for you to discuss um, how things are really going. Because the poor practice that we see is that change is somehow seen as a linear. So we start in January and we should complete all these milestones in December, and that's
Mhm.
it. Well, we know that there are many moments that we really need to have the space to reflect. Is that really making the impact that we wanted? Are these really the most clever next steps that we can do? Or do we need to rethink something? And you need proper space for these discussions. So we wanted to have an environment for that. And we didn't the classical meetings for this didn't serve really our purpose. And also the PowerPoints with the roadmaps are good for information, but they are not reflecting our discussions, and they don't give us the creativity and the dynamic we need to actually change things and reflect on things. So we put together an Obeya room, and we use the Obeya approach to working together,
Yeah.
because the Obeya as a space gave us the opportunity to connect what do we want to achieve and why with the actual execution, and track really, okay, are these initiatives, processes, projects really helping us to become who we wanted to become in the first place, and how realistic that is. How are we really moving the needle that we wanted from the very beginning? So in the middle of our Obeya was our mirror, namely our metrics,
Yeah.
numbers,
Yeah.
qualitative measure, qualitative input, quantitative input, which was standing as our mirror, as a proof point. Yes, you are making this project great and you are achieving all the deadlines, but the impact you're making on who you want it to be is not the one. Yeah. So Obeya as a space really helped us to align why, what, how with our projects initiatives in the journey, and the mirror about our metrics and success metrics, yeah,
Yeah.
KPIs that we had.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was good to visualize, and
Yeah.
it gave us the good ground to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. And still that is very important, eh? In the Obeya is also it needs to facilitate your way of working, your decision making, your dialogues, to really discuss about the things that really matter and what impact are we making, and to align with each other. So it's still the people who need to make it work. And we
Yes.
dived into the last business agility boost with Adriano, your dear colleague, former CHRO of Erste. So if people want to know more about, because it's too much for now to dive into that, but if people like to know more about it, then really find it back in our previous business agility boost, and also on our website www.twinkster.com. You find a case study which we created together with you, Margarita and Adriano, and other people in the organization, around your case study about the change within HR and the powerful way of working with the Obeya. And I know, Margarita, we can talk for hours as usual, but we have a bit of a time constraint. And as you have so much experience to share, but we are coming to an end. You started last year, and I don't want to forget that. You started last year in your new role at Nortal. And what are the crucial things the learnings, the failures you made in your former career during the transformation, because we only learn when something does not work very well, or if you fail and you can improve. So what do you take with you?
That's a very good question. I joined Nortel last summer in a phase. So Nortel is in the tech industry. We are dealing with the digitalization and transformation of public services, governments, smart cities, and really working on smart technology solutions for healthcare, for example. So very interesting industry, very dynamic industry. So at the moment, Nortel is in a phase of rapid growth and
Mhm.
rapid scale up. So we need to structure things. We need to bring things into context and ensure a seamless employee experience going forward. And that's the essence of my role. So what are the processes and technologies in people and culture that we need in order to create the best environment for our employees to be productive and to be the best version of themselves? So I'm very happy that I joined in such a dynamic environment. And the challenge here for me personally is that how do we structure, as I said, things and help this company to grow
Yeah.
without killing or influencing its very great culture, startup culture that they have, and the great delivery speed that we have, and the great experience that people also make already today. So that's the challenge for me personally, and the interesting thing for me. And also, I have to say that I bring a lot of learnings related to, on the one hand side, enthusiasm is very important in change, as I mentioned. So creating this energy and creating this super belief and dedication and commitment about the future and about the changes that we need to make to get to that future.
Mhm.
But next to enthusiasm, you always need to bring evidence, right? So you need to be practical. You need to understand what people need in their day-to-day work to be successful, and bring that evidence in small but believable but also relevant pieces all the time through the change journey.
Yeah.
So these two things for me, I bring together: enthusiasm, energy, and evidence. So energy and evidence together, because it is what makes the journey a really enjoyable one, these two elements.
Yeah.
And last but not least is, yeah, the whole notion of these key questions we went through, starting with who you are today, where do you want to be in the future, how does it look like, and only then start filling in the gap in between and reflecting how do you want to do that, always in a discussion with the colleagues or the people who are impacted by that, never leaving those out, because in the end of the day, only people make things real. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's why I'm a fan still, and I bring it together with me of co-creation, collaboration, crowdsourcing. So that's very key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Margarita. And I think also reading the trends of 2024, there is almost no organization without change initiatives,
Hmm.
big or small, doesn't matter. But what you already said and advised, start always with understanding what you're aiming for. And I think that's a great advice to give. And with that, I would like to thank you for being here with me, with us. And if people who are watching now or people who will watch in the replay, where can they find you if they have questions? Because this will be live on LinkedIn and stay on LinkedIn for replay. So people can add their comments, of course, still underneath our conversation. Where can they find you more? You are visible on LinkedIn.
Yes, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn anytime for exchange, for ideas, for inspiration, for validation of ideas that you may have. I'm always open to share also what we do. And what we go through every day is a new day to learn. Every day is a dance, as I also say, because change is a lot about dancing. Make steps forward, but sometimes you need to make steps back in order for your partner to make a step forward. So let's share the dance, let's share experiences. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn via direct message.
Perfect. Thank you, Margarita, and I wish you a wonderful weekend. And also for everyone who joined us or will watch in the replay, wish you a very good weekend and hope to see you next time again. In 2 weeks, we have our next Business Agility Boost with a new guest, Leonie Lubbers. She will talk about implementing people strategy. And if you want to know more about the case where we elaborated on during this Business Agility, the HR transformation, then go to www.twingster.com and find the case of Erste Bank under case studies. Thank you so much and have a great day. Thank you, Margarita.
Thank you. Thank you very much.